Rise Up Kingston and defund the police and distributing pamphlets in our neighborhood.
I got one on my doorknob.
Yeah, how did that make you feel?
I was, now that I'm no longer on the bench, I can say exactly how I feel. I was incensed. I do believe it's everyone's right to voice their opinions. I believe 100% in that. But take the time to realize whose door you're putting this information on. And they obviously did not, and it was offensive. I always think that you should hear both sides, obviously, and it was pretty accusational, that little brochure I had on my doorknob. Didn't make me happy.
And interesting that you provide that insight, because great friend and community champion Val DeWire's response to that was to create signs, says our community backs the blue. And the real reason that she created those signs was how offended a state trooper was to get that on his doorstep.
Yeah, look, I know they're volunteers. I know that the money for this is being funded in some respect by Soros, which most of these initiatives are. But at the same point, you have individuals that I'm sure are volunteering their time to put things out that they believe in. It's just, if you're going to do that, God bless you, but if you're going to do that, research both sides to begin with. And then secondly, make sure that the doorknob you're putting it on is not a state police officer's home.
Well, you just brought up the key component, research. And just to be clear, as most people in the community know, Rise Up Kingston is funded by Peter Buffett, $600,000.
Oh, I thought it was Soros.
Well, I'm sure in some backwards way, but it's been verified that Peter Buffett, amongst many other things, including projects within the city of Kingston and the county of Ulster, is funding it. And when you say research, Val DeWire was supposed to talk with someone last Sunday about the signs. That person canceled. Now I'm going to learn today why that is, so I'll leave it there. But to your point, what I found is, you challenge an organization like this, they have no response. My question to them would be, what's going on in the city of Rochester, New York right now? They defunded the police. They just declared a state of emergency.
Every city, especially the larger cities that have been impacted by the defund the police, whether the programs have been completely defunded or their budgets have been dramatically decreased, every city that has occurred, the crime rate, especially the violent crime rate, has grown exponentially. So I do agree, Dan, as in any system, that there is always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
But as I said about drug reform, bail reform, all of those areas, those categories needed attention, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that's defund the police. And I will not mention names, but one of the first shows I was on here, someone mentioned to me about a pilot program in the city of Kingston that one of the local council people was asking for money to examine how we can initiate this gun program. I said, that's interesting. It's always good to see other programs. And they said it was being modeled after what existed already in another city. And I asked, what is the city that this is being modeled after? You know what the answer was? Chicago. Chicago, which has one of, if not the highest, violent gun problems in the nation. And it continues and worsens after many of these initiatives that are not well thought out before they're done. I mean,
Well, I served on the Reimagine Police Task Force last year for the city, a time I will not get back in my life. But my role, we each had a specific topic to address, and mine was police accountability. I interviewed Mike Bonce, who was at that time number 2 at the City of Kingston Police Department, 4 times. And full disclosure, Mike and I grew up together. And I said to Mike in our first meeting, I'm going to ask you tough questions. And if you need to not answer it, or you're not able because of, I respect that there's a union contract in place, and if I'm out of bounds, you tell me that. But if I am out of bounds, I'm going to share the question, and I'm going to say that you are not able to answer that. Are you okay with that? Absolutely, Dan. Complete open book.
that's great. One of the things, there are issues, and one of the things that was most troubling to me at the very outset, being an assistant district attorney for close to 20 years, DA for 10, judge for 10, was the blue wall of silence. And that's troubling. And I certainly understand the position that the officers are in when they see something improper to come forward and explain it. They are ostracized by so many other members of their department. And that's hard, and that's got to be chipped away at, and I think it is. So for every very aggressive initiative that is so wrong for not showing both sides, there is some good that comes out of it because it makes all of us take a step back and address it. But again, take the time to research both sides before you try to hold yourself out to be an expert, and take the time to research the areas that you are petitioning. Most certainly don't put it on a cop's front door.
Yeah, or a former judge. And, your reputation was always, you were tough, but you were fair.
I tried to be.
You, as a citizen who watched what you did for 10 years, I can say that unequivocally. I'm sure there's some lawyers that would say differently, probably because it didn't work out in their favor, because they weren't prepared and they didn't do their research. Compare your approach to the bench to what's going on today, as Don's wincing his face.
Yeah. And I don't have the ethical restraints that I used to have,
right,
Dan, but at the same time, I'm going to try to maintain the professionalism, the dignity of the bench. Suffice it to say, I have a real concern with court being run when individuals or an individual is more concerned about their popularity than doing justice. And
justice isn't easy.
No, it's not. And you have to be able to make decisions that are unpopular. And it takes strength to be tough. It takes courage to be fair. And that fair part is a battle every day. And you can't be concerned. I'm human. And, there are many lawyers that were not fond of me because after the first warning, and if they were experienced prosecutors or defense attorneys, after the first warning, if they came back to court unprepared, that was intolerable. And they would know.
We've heard.
They would know. And I first would address it with them privately in chambers. If it happened again, then they would be dressed down in court. And you develop many individuals that don't like that, understandably. Look, Frank Vogt used to judge Francis Vogt, and I appeared in front of him right out of law school for 14 years. He happened to like me. I always thought of him as my stepdad. But if I came into court unprepared, or if I tried to get cutesy or dramatic, boy, he let me know. I can recall a murder case, one of my first murders. I gave an opening statement, and I was genuinely emotionally impacted. It was a young girl that was brutally abducted, raped, and then murdered. And while giving the opening, it was very dramatic, too dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
And it impacted me, and I started tearing up a little bit. Right in the beginning of the opening, he stopped the proceedings, said, "We're taking a break," and boy, did I get a tongue lashing. You're a prosecutor, suck it up, make your points. You can argue, I know you feel about this, but you've got to do it professionally. And I learned. And that was from a person who truly liked me and respected me and spent time with me after the fact trying to help to make me a better lawyer.
He was mentoring you.
He was mentoring me, but he also, more importantly, was ensuring that a jury, to the best of his ability, was going to make their decision based on facts and evidence and not on theater. My fear is that there may be too much of a concern about popularity and an unwillingness to hold lawyers' feet to the fire. Now, our first guest, after we get to talk, Dan, is
Yes.
Marianne Connolly, local attorney. Marianne was an assistant public defender that appeared in front of me regularly. Marianne is very bright, not shy. She's willing to voice her opinion and very progressive. Yet, and Marianne...
Uh-oh.
No, Marianne will say how she feels, and she means it, and she means well, and makes very good points.
That's
Ask Marianne.
I will. That is a wonderful segue, because I had a conversation last week uptown with Sarah Rakoff, who's going to become the new family court judge.
She's going to make a great judge.
And I'm going to tell you, you obviously know, but anyone listening know why she's going to be a great family court judge. Her and I had a one-on-one conversation for the better part of 20 minutes. Sarah knows I don't think like she does politically,
Right.
and I know Sarah doesn't think like I do. And we talked about the tough issues. We talked about how this exact type of conversation is what needs to happen in order for this community to get back on track. I left that conversation. I've known Sarah a long time. I have a ton of respect for her. I have so much more respect today than I did a week ago.
Sarah's going to take this position extremely seriously. She understands her responsibilities, and she understands that the power you have as a judge, whether it's in family court, where she will be, or even more devastating in county court, where you're handling the most serious felonies, that power can be corrupted. It can be.
And she also understands the impact she can have, right? Our schools are struggling immensely, and it breaks my heart, because so many of these kids have been isolated for so long, they no longer know how to behave, and there's, just problems left and right. And to know that someone like Sarah's coming in, where those type of situations, unfortunately, will end up in front of her at some point, to know that someone is not going to just let them walk or just drop the hammer, right? That, to me, for once, and we joke because she ran unopposed.
Yes.
And she was jokingly, we're at the Ulster Chamber Business Awards a couple days before the election, and she said, "Geez, I hope I get elected." I said, "Well, I'm going to cross the line and pull the lever for you." And she said, "Well, my dad's going to do it first." So
she had a shot.
Yeah, she had a shot, but
It's funny, but Sarah, when I first took the bench, and I was an aggressive district attorney, and an more aggressive chief assistant, but when I first took the bench, I know Sarah was one of the people that was expressing to others in the legal community her concerns, that I would be pro-prosecution, I wouldn't be fair, I'd only be tough, et cetera, et cetera. And all of that gets back
Sure.
to the individual. Yet, at the end, when Sarah did appear in front of me, Sarah was treated no different than any other lawyer. And when Sarah came to court And it wasn't often that she came up on a felony, but when she came to court, she was prepared. And that is what I not only expected, but demanded of all lawyers. It turns out that when I heard Sarah was running for judge, and at the time Sarah was clerking for Judge McGinty, but she was still not known politically. And I had some contacts, I'm a Republican, but I had some contacts that were part of the leadership, the old leadership in the Democratic Party. And I remember we were at Kennard one night, and I introduced Sarah to this very prominent Democratic leader and told him, I was no longer on the bench, I told him that this is a person that's going to make a great judge. And I think Sarah was a little surprised by that, but it ended up that Sarah and I now are close. And I just think she's going to make a good judge. She will not allow politics to interfere with her decisions, and she will not try to run the court to be nice to lawyers. And you have to be nice to the lawyers that came in, especially handling murders and rapes. Dan, I have so much respect for them. Remember, I was there for 30 years. It is such a difficult job, so overwhelming, so stressful. Those lawyers I hold in the highest of not just my profession, but any profession. But the ones that did not take it that seriously and were not willing to make those sacrifices, there's too much at stake in that court. There's too much at stake for defendants, there's too much at stake for victims and for the community that you cannot worry about how popular you are. So that, in essence, those are my feelings, Dan.
Well, I think you just really provided a synopsis of where we were to where we are. And, you know, to anyone out there listening, yes, Don Williams held people accountable. He expected excellence on both sides. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that, you know, is unfair about that. That is, you had a tremendous amount of responsibility. Every single day of everything that came before you, you had to be on your game.
But you know something, Dan, and I think I said it when I made that final difficult decision not to run again. I think I said in my comment in a very brief note that having experienced all that, every day I woke up and I would awaken early and get into chambers early. I never stopped appreciating how lucky I was to be in a position where I could use to the fullest extent what I believe to be my gift, and my gift from God. Mm-hmm. I know I probably shouldn't say that because that will make me unpopular with many people, but I used to tell my wife passed, as you know, from leukemia back in 2016, and my kids that what I do is a gift. And they really respected that, but they referred to it not as a gift, but as a curse. So.
Well, what I would say to your kids is you were a gift and continue to be to the greater Kingston community and Ulster County, because I watched many a very difficult case, and I remember a murder case that was, you know, fairly prolific at the time and dragged out, if I remember correctly.
But dragged out in Ulster County court would be a week and a half, not the months that occur in other cases.
Yeah.
We have to shut down.
I was wondering where Larry went.
We don't have to shut down, but we got to go to break.
We got to take a break.
I'm sorry. I'm in the process of typing all these addresses and doing the labels. I got to get my part done for my mother, or I'm going to get scolded. So we'll go to a break, and we'll be back with our first guest.
Marianne is probably out in the lobby now.
I'm sure if you got her on point, Don, she'll be here on time. So we'll be right back, folks.
Listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the Drug Facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the Drug Facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/drugfacts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a team practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the Y. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
This is the story of Daniel, who was born 2 months early. His lungs weren't ready. His heart wasn't ready. His parents could only hope that one day he would leave the hospital healthy, and they would all live happily ever after. Daniel's is just one of the more than 500,000 stories of babies born prematurely last year. You can help the March of Dimes stop premature birth and bring more babies home healthy. Learn how at marchofdimes.com. Working together for stronger, healthier babies.
Hi, this is Tony Marmo from Norman Staffing, and we've been bringing together employers and job seekers since 1980. If you're an employer and have job vacancies, let Norman Staffing help fill them with permanent or temporary workers. We screen, interview, and recommend the best candidates for your company. We make the employment process easier and faster for you. Please call Norman Staffing for your employment needs at 338-9111, 338-9111, or normanstaffing.com.
Hi, I'm Ruth Quick from Town of Ulster. I support Kingston Community Radio, and you should too.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Republican Party got taken over by...
We're back on the radio, so we have to clean up the conversations. This is Donald Williams. Oh, yes. I'll pull the mic. Pull it close to you.
With masks on, it's a little hard to come over, but now that you're good to go.
And you know, she's so low, and I am low. Marianne is not. Trust me. We're here with Dan Gruner, who's co-hosting with me today, and again, Dan, thanks for filling in for Tony Marmo at the end. And Dan and I go back a long time, but we're also lucky enough. I'm going to thank Marianne. We have Marianne Connolly, who is a very successful local practitioner of law. She was actually, you were an intern, I believe,
That's
in the
correct.
district attorney's office when I was an assistant.
I think you were the chief.
Chief assistant district attorney. And then went on, got her law degree, ended up ultimately appearing in front of me on a regular basis, which is not always an easy thing.
Every day, Your Honor.
Every day as an assistant public defender, and Marianne was not afraid to voice her opinion. She was extremely aggressive but professional and respectful, aggressive in representing her clients, and there were some challenging moments.
There were some moments.
There were some challenging moments we had, me trying to balance the equities, but you did a great job.
Thank you.
Whether it was a DWI felony or some of the murders that you handled, in fact went to trial, you gave good, strong representation of all of your clients, and that to me, and you came prepared, as you know.
That was always your thing, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Well, there's a common theme here. Prepared, research, accountability. How far we have swayed from that.
Well, and once again, I have to be cautious, even though I have no ethical responsibilities. I did explain to Dan, you weren't here at the time, Marianne, that he said, do you have any concerns now about the system across the board? And we discussed many things such as defund the police, bail reform. And I did tell him, of course, that there are legitimate concerns about those areas of criminal justice system, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, in essence. That was, and I also had a concern, and I will not get into the details of it, that as a judge, you must be willing to be unpopular with the attorneys that appear in front of you, and hold those attorneys accountable when they are not prepared. And my concern is that the system does not turn into a popularity contest rather than a system that demands the utmost in professionalism and performance. Anyway, that just to give you...
Yeah, it'd be interesting to get, I mean, you're still obviously actively practicing, so talk to us.
In defense of Marianne, she's not in a position where she could voice an opinion.
No, I understand.
I ain't afraid of anybody.
No, you're not.
But I don't, I'm not asking for any type of inside baseball information, but,
What you can ask her about her appearances in front of me, and there were there were occasions where we butt heads.
A couple of times.
So, obviously, my uncle is Paul Gruner, and so
He hired me.
Right. I was wondering that when you were talking. So that's where the stories originated with Judge Williams, and
Yes.
before I got to know him, and so I was wondering if you could either confirm those stories or
Well, he was-
share a different light.
He was very, very tough on us in front of him. You had to be prepared. You had to know your cases, your facts, and the law. Don't come in there citing a case and not be familiar with the facts of the case that you cite, or without copies for the court and and the people. And we did have our moments. I was thrown out of the building more than once.
Well,
so.
not thrown out of the building. You
Well.
were respectfully but directly asked to leave the courtroom.
Well, we weren't sure if I was allowed back in. So
Well, that's one of the good things.
Did it make you a better lawyer?
100%. There's no doubt in my mind. Every big case of my career that I tried, almost everyone was in front of His Honor. Almost every homicide I tried was in front of him, and absolutely made me a much, much better lawyer. There's no doubt in my mind. And we all say that, when we get together, whether it's the police officers who knew that they had to be prepared as well, defense attorneys, DAs, even the clerks. You really had to be on point in that courtroom. It was a very busy courtroom, and he demanded, the utmost from everyone. He was there, the first one, every single day, and he was the last one to leave. In 7 years, I got there once before him. Do you remember that day?
I don't.
What you do?
I do.
It must have been about 7 o'clock in the morning.
It was. And I was still getting out of my car when he pulled in. And of course, I had to yell across the parking lot, "What, half-day judge?"
I was probably at the doctor's, by the way.
Yes.
But just don't feel embarrassed at all, Marianne. She is not one to pull punches. But
No, you mentioned that before she came on. That's very clear, but
Yeah, we had a good time in that courtroom. I mean, it was very serious matters, but I think that we managed to.
But Marianne,
Some
the
fun.
one thing, the two things I think I was most proud of, people I think feared, because I was a prosecutor in essence my entire career, that I would be very pro-prosecution and give them breaks all the time. I held the prosecutor's feet to the fire.
You certainly did.
More so than I did defense attorneys. And there's a reason. Defense attorneys are there within the boundaries of ethics to do everything they can for the best interests of their client. Prosecutors should be there to do justice, not to obtain notches on their gun belt. It shouldn't be just about getting convictions. It's to do justice. And if a prosecutor came in much like the prosecutor has done occasionally in this Rittenhouse case, and violated a constitutional right of a defendant, that would not bode well for the prosecutor. And I would typically try not to do that in front of the jury, but you just can't do that. So I think I held the prosecutors, and maybe that's not fair, but I held the prosecutors more responsible for their conduct than defense attorneys.
They have an obligation to the truth and to seek truth in every case. And as an officer of the court, nobody can misstate, frankly, the truth. But again, within the confines of ethics, you're an advocate, and there's a way to present, pretty much any kind of facts that hopefully, as an advocate, you can present in such a way that limits the damage, if not is more favorable to your client. But the prosecutors are different. They take an oath. And, listen, in their defense, it's hard not to get caught up in that, right? Because,
Sure.
it's human nature. You want to win.
And you have victims and victims' family that you deal with on a daily basis, and you do want to win. For that reason, you do also want to win to advance your career. And if I could tell that it was something because of the situation they were there because of victims, or victims' families, but if I saw that they just came in because they weren't taking it seriously enough and were unprepared or tried to manipulate the truth or act up, then that would not be tolerated. So, but I think I was tougher on the prosecutors than I was on defense attorneys.
Yeah, I think, in fact, you and I actually butted heads about that issue, too.
Probably, yeah. See, one of the good things about being a judge and you're not concerned about your popularity, thank God, is you have to develop thick skin. So,
Oh, sure.
all of those times, and I know we butted heads, occasionally.
Okay, with sentencing, that was our big thing.
Sentencing was, and my sentences the trials were overwhelmingly fair. The trials.
Judge, you were brutal on sentencing. You were.
Sentencing was tough. If you committed a violent crime.
You were convicted in front of, you gave a very fair trial. I'll give you that.
Well, there were occasions, and I think you've seen that also, Marianne, where especially on the drug cases, where individuals, if you were a drug dealer and repeatedly sold drugs, serious drugs, not marijuana, serious drugs, and you demonstrated no legitimate remorse, you were going to get slammed by me. You're going to get taken off the streets. But individuals that were addicted to drugs and just couldn't overcome that addiction, and when they appeared for me, and as you know, all of you attorneys told your clients, don't make a statement. You have a right to make a statement at sentence. Don't do it because he's going to grill you. There were occasions that people still made statements, and I was persuaded that they had genuine remorse and were unable to overcome the throes of their addiction, and I would reduce their sentences significantly. The sentence, and that happened on numerous occasions. Of course, that never makes the Daily Freeman. But yes, my sentences were tough, and I'm sure many people other than victims' families, and the community, many people probably thought they were too tough. So, but a message was sent.
It goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show. And you had said, I really wish people would do their research. And
Marianne did.
But it you look at all the noise that's going on these days, and you talked almost immediately about how prepared you had to be, how you had to have your facts in line, you had to have your documentation. Accountability is not something that we all should want to be held accountable.
It's hard, though, Dan. Remember, I appeared for 14 years in front of Frank Vogt. No one wants to be criticized. No one. And to be dressed down in open court in front of the people that you work with as professionals, it can, no matter how thick your skin may be. I used to go back home Judge Vogt was tough.
He was tough.
He was, you may think I'm tough. Judge Vogt was tough, fair, but very tough. And there were nights I would go home, literally either, not frequently in tears, but I would go home and the names in vain that I would take Judge Vogt, and I had so much respect and love for him. But boy, would I curse him out.
But it goes back to the first question I asked you. Did it make you a better lawyer?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And you didn't even blink. And it's ironic that we were out to dinner last night and Judge Vogt's name came up because Uncle Paul and Uncle Gene were there, and and you're talking about. Think of the impact he had on your career. That now moved to your career, and however many other people, attorneys, that you made better attorneys because you took what you learned from a man, 40 years ago? And I've heard stories about the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he lived not far from me growing up, but
he was an absolutely incredible man, great judge, horrible golfer, and it was known to occasionally throw his putter and yell certain obscenities on a public golf course. But he, good man, good judge.
The first trial I ever saw was Judge Vogt when I was an intern. It was a rape case. You were in the DA's office. You weren't the DA who tried it. And I remember it very vividly. And we were also doing sentencing on the individuals who threw the rock over the
Jeffrey Damiano. That was
yes.
my case. Okay.
the rock.
Jeffrey Damiano, Eric Birdsall,
Yes.
52-pound boulder.
Yeah. I was
That was the summer that I did my internship.
I was
What
a
time
teenager.
to be interning.
So you're from here, or?
I'm originally from the Bronx, but I went to undergrad in New Paltz, and I worked in a restaurant there for many years. And my rabbi became, and my personal mentor became Mr. Sevago, Peter Sevago. Another, when we speak about great men, right? Who I miss terribly. We lost him last year.
Yeah.
And
Can you imagine a progressive, bold, local public defender, and her mentor was Peter
Sevago,
Who was
yep.
a little bit right of Attila the Hun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And our family is I still spend Christmas with the Sevago family. I absolutely love them.
Goes back to what you and I were talking about with Sarah Rakoff, right? You had someone mentor you that you didn't align with politically. That didn't matter. A good person helped a good person. Frank Vogt, I assume I know his political affiliation, but I wouldn't get, put that stuff aside.
That's hard to do.
And when you
it's truly, when you're especially a young lawyer, although the young lawyers I gave more rope to hang themselves.
I was just going to say that.
No, I extended. In fact, as you recall, Marianne, because you did it a few times, if I recall, after the trial was over, or after the process was over, I always made myself available to the attorneys to come in to accept some corrective criticism and to give them moral support, because the lawyers that came in, including you, that were prepared and cared so much about their cases, there really is no other, although much of my profession I'm embarrassed about, to be honest, much of it. But the lawyers that came in prepared, I hold them at the very top of any profession because the stress is so overwhelming. The time and effort and the compensation in being a public defender or a district attorney, assistant DA or assistant public defender is minimal compared to what you can make in private practice.
I'll never forget, you talk about the stress, and our family, back in the day, we used to go to Portobello every Friday night, including aunts, uncles, and we're all sitting there on a Friday night, and Uncle Paul's not there yet. And I read in the paper he was handling this really high-profile case out in New Paltz. And so we're all waiting, we didn't want to order. Aunt Kathy's telling us to order, and we wait. So finally, 6:30, he shows up. And he looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. And he sat down, and, nobody wanted to talk to him, right? Uncle Paul, he can be a bear. And
But we tried many cases against one another.
and so he sits down and he's just he's not talking to anybody. And Aunt Kathy finally leans over and whispers in his ear.
Paul's wife, Kathy.
And only
Yes, I
Uncle
know.
Paul Fish, and he slams his hand on the table, so all the stuff's shaking, right? And he says, "Not guilty." And he didn't really talk much that night because that's how invested he was.
Paul really cared. Great lawyer. Good lawyer. Enough about us and Frank Vogt. What's going on in your private practice now? You're no longer an assistant public defender, correct?
That's correct. I resigned after I got 20 years in, so that was in 2018.
Thank you, by the way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I started my career as a prosecutor in the Bronx, and so I brought back my time in the Bronx.
Talk about unpopular for prosecutor in the Bronx. My
Yeah,
God. Go ahead.
we had a good time though. Went to a lot of Yankee games.
I take it the conviction rate was not exactly the highest.
Yeah.
Prosecutors in the Bronx, but
Not an easy place to get
Not
a
an
criminal
easy-
conviction.
no.
But it certainly was fun. But yes, and then I opened my own private practice in July of 2018, and
You're there.
on Wall Street in Kingston.
Okay.
And I absolutely loved my office. It was beautiful. I had it for 3 years, and then I just closed it last month.
Oh, I'm sorry. After you left the public defender's
Yes.
office, I was thinking you were talking about when you came up from the Bronx.
Oh no! When I came up from the Bronx, Mr. Gruner hired me almost right away. I appeared on a couple of private matters in front of, I guess, Judge Brune,
Right.
and Mr. Gruner approached me in the courtroom. I think I met with you too about a
Probably.
position with
Was
the
I a
DA's
DA?
office. Yeah, I think you were the DA, and you called me in as well. But Mr. Gruner offered me appeals that I could do from,
Yes. And we
remotely,
already had
and
your land.
and my kids were little at the time, so that's the position I ended up taking.
So you did appeals initially for a period of time. but
11
then-
years.
But then became a trial lawyer.
Yes, 2016. No, 2012. 2012.
And you were not. Trying a case is incredibly
It really
difficult.
is.
It is so hard, no matter who the judge is. It is hard. You literally do not sleep at night.
You don't.
But
you lose weight. It's a great weight loss program.
You were fearless. You were very good at.
We tried a lot of murder cases,
did.
right?
I know you tried one twice. You got a hung jury the first
Pasquarello,
time.
yes.
What is your practice going? So you leave the PD's office. You put your own shingle out.
My
I
own
love
shingle
that.
out, which my dad always
How's
wanted.
it going now? What are you doing? What are you
Great.
focusing on?
So private stuff is, DWIs, the state troopers have been going wild lately. Wild. Yeah, so many trooper arrests. So that's a big part of it. But I do uncontested divorces. I do some landlord-tenant just from, my dear friends, people who own property. And, I don't do really any tenant work. And believe it or not, I've been doing family work, which I've actually been enjoying, and I spent my entire career avoiding family court where love goes to die as a spectator sport. But
Love goes to die as a spectator sport.
it really,
I've never heard that.
yeah, I coined that one.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
That's a very insightful statement.
Yeah, it truly is, and it's an awful, awful place. But Tony McGinty is one of the loveliest individuals.
good.
He's just
Good to hear.
he's just a real wonderful person, and so he started giving me assignments and got to know Sarah, and she's wonderful. Sarah Rakoff, who's going to be our next
Yep.
family court judge, and I have been taking cases from a couple of other family court judges as well. It's virtual. And I think that may be part of it,
Yeah, I think so much is lost.
You know what, though? I have to tell you, keeping the parties separate in family law,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
a
understood.
lot to be said for it, and it's
Absolutely.
not jury. There's no juries, so it really kind of works in the family court setting. I don't think it would ever. Obviously, we have the confrontation clause, so we are always going to have to deal with that. But even apart from that, the criminal court setting really isn't conducive to it in quite the same way that the family court. it's working.
That makes a great deal of sense. Keeping the parties
Yes.
physically separate can be a physical issue. So,
And, and these are, people in family court, people really in any court, they're in crisis. They're working people. Rather than have them sitting in a waiting room with their, missing work, you can have them, dial in from wherever they are. They're not missing
what
work.
are the type of cases, obviously I'm aware of this, but
Yeah.
so the public, what are the type of cases that occur in family court?
So visitation, custody, a lot of disputes if they can't work that out.
So the divorce itself occurs in the Supreme Court.
That's correct, yes.
But custody issues and visitation frequently ends up in family court, normally is in family court.
The Supreme Court can do it.
Correct.
But if
they have
you,
enough on their-
right, if there's a dispute and you file a petition in family court will hear it and deal with it. And then separately from custody and visitation is support. They're very separate entities. There's different judges that handle it. It's a different courtroom. And it's significant to always separate that because you never want to link financial interest with the parent's participation in the child's life. So I thought that was one of the more interesting things that I learned about family court was the great lengths to which they go to separate those issues.
And it makes a great deal of sense philosophically, but finances have so much to do with the care of the child. And
They really do. They eat 3 times a day,
it's- 3.
Who's feeding them, honey?
And that's interesting because I've spoken to many people, attorneys from family court. We have 1 minute left. I just got the finger from Lawrence. Sure, exactly. It was, okay. So, Marianne, anything? First of all, again, we're here with Marianne Connolly, you're no longer on Wall Street.
No, so I closed the office and I moved it to my home because the kids are all at college, and
Much of it is virtual anyway.
and we just redid my whole home, and it's really beautiful. We did a home office.
Oh, great.
So it's been great, and it's less expensive. I'm able to help the kids a little bit more while they're doing their studies.
So, Marianne, in the last 30 seconds we have, anything you'd like to leave us with?
I just wanted to really thank the clerk's offices all throughout Ulster County. Through this period of COVID, they have undertaken tasks that have really just been so above and beyond. And we have, as a community, really thanked first responders and kind of all of these various groups. But I really think kind of the clerks are the unsung heroes of the judicial system. They've taken on virtual proceedings and phones, and it's just been amazing. So I'd just like to thank them.
That's nice. And again, thank you, especially last minute coming in.
No
Good
problem.
luck in court this morning.
Thank you so much. Great to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Take care. Thank you.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
There was this one time I went snorkeling in the Caribbean when I was a kid. It really just blew my mind. We saw the most beautiful corals. I remember thinking they were waving at us as they moved with the ocean. And then there were all these amazing fish. I'll never forget it. It completely changed the way I look at the ocean.
Most of us have a memory of being in nature we'll never forget. Let's protect the world's natural places so more memories can be made for generations to come. Visit worldwildlife.org.
This is Greg Jorvis, and once again, the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund is asking you to help the needy this holiday season. For the last 50 years, the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund has helped less fortunate families have a happier holiday. Look for our collection boxes at the local branches of the Ulster Federal Credit Union, Rondout Savings Bank, the Mid-Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union, Ulster Savings Bank, and at the Kiwanis Ice Arena in Saugerties. Thank you very much, and have a happy and Merry Christmas.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed. We are a global force for good. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. We can do more together than we can alone. Join in. Experience the joy of serving. Be part of the movement. Give back. Let's unite the world for good. We are Lions. You can be too. Visit weserve.org.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Okay, we're back. You want to do birthdays before we get to Steve Kelly?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lawrence.
Take it away.
Daniel.
All right, you're up first.
Oh, I'm up first.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the one that I can't read, but that's all right.
There's a lot of those.
We have November 18th, which is today. Happy birthday to, I think it's Jody McCasland.
Yes.
From her, I think, husband, Olivia, family, and friends. Enjoy your day.
And the winner of the...
Well, you have to read the next...
Oh, yes. Please wish a happy birthday to Charlene Hammersley from your friends at the Lunch A Bunchers. And for today, November 18th, the winner of the Boyce Dairy Cow Pie is Charlene Hammersley.
All right, Dan, you have to ring the cowbell. Where's the bell?
I don't
Happy
have
birthday,
one.
Charlene. It's right next to you. It's his first time doing birthdays.
I
man.
get
Give
you.
the guy a break. Good
I
job,
know.
man.
I'm glad Dan's doing it because I would not.
Yeah, I know.
Shamrock
Well,
Run.
I don't know if does Tony ring the bell? He
does.
does some kind of
Rings
weird.
it incessantly.
He does some kind of weird whistling over the.
I
thing.
know.
We're
Some
so
people
glad
do a
Tony's
some
not
people
here
do a
for
cow
that
noise.
reason. Yeah.
I just.
He also does the Thunder
Happy birthday.
Thursday.
Yes, he
All right.
does.
Happy birthday,
we have
young lady.
Steve
And
Kelly
that
on the
cow
line. Good
pie
morning,
is
Steve.
good.
Yes, it is.
Good. All right, Dan. We have online now on the telephone Steve Kelly, who's the CEO from the Ellenville Regional Hospital. He's a regular guest on Thursdays.
I don't know. Tony booked him. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning, Steve. Let's try to turn that volume
Yeah, just
up
give us
so
1
we can
minute,
hear
Steve.
you.
We're gonna have Larry adjust the mic. If you could just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Steve Kelly. I'm the CEO down in Ellenville Regional Hospital.
And Donald Williams is here. We've spoken several times before, Steve. It's always really informative. And also Dan Gruner is taking Tony's spot to co-host today. So good morning.
Well, good morning. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Steve.
How are things going for you guys?
Well, so far I think I'm doing all right. This isn't my first appearance, and it was kind of a walk down memory lane. Don and I have known each other a long time and haven't seen each other in a while, so
I was quite
always
happy.
value his opinion on different things.
Always quite happy, Steve, to hear when Tony was not going to be here that Dan was going to be co-hosting because he's a very knowledgeable, good friend, and somebody that really has his finger on the pulse of the community. However, he's a Kingstonian as I am, so we're not as intimately familiar with what is going on in the Ellenville community. And I know you always seem to have a great idea of what's happening. What's happening with the hospital and what's happening with the community you can tell us about this morning.
All right. Well, the hospital is doing pretty well. We're having what I think may be our best year ever by pretty much every metric. It's just amazing to me. Whether that's quality, outcomes, business volumes, financial performance. It's a very good year. We're doing extremely well this year.
That is absolutely great news.
Construction, we're coming out of COVID, so that we had a real bounce. Last year was, I would not want to see 2020 again. It was a very, very difficult year. But as in the first half of 2021 was, pretty tough too. But we definitely are seeing a bounce. The community is doing very well. We have a lot of new people that have moved into the community from, largely the metro area, who have been buying up a lot of the older buildings and starting businesses. It's truly an exciting time down in the southern end of the county.
And the Allenville community is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's every time I used to have to go there as DA, it's right at the base of the mountains. It's so beautiful. Even the Eastern Correctional Facility, the location is just beautiful.
Yeah. Eastern looks like a castle with a mountain coming right up behind it.
It's much more attractive on the outside than the inside, I can tell you, Steve.
Fortunately, I've never seen the inside.
Unfortunately, I have.
Well, I got a tour of the inside, and I was really glad to get back to the outside.
It is.
It goes from looking like a castle on the outside to looking like a prison on the inside.
And it's strange because the Eastern Correctional Facility is one of the more progressive correctional facilities in the state. The programs they have are cutting edge in act, but once you go inside of that facility, even from a hardened prosecutor and judge, it is intimidating as soon as those metal doors behind you close. It's a frightening place. However, not the hospital.
That's we're not that way though.
No, definitely not.
We're not that way. Everything's bright and new and really doing well. We've built a new emergency department this year that's 2.5 times the size of the old one. So we've got lots of space. Our community's discovered it. Business volumes have gone up quite a lot just since we opened it at the end of June. We're definitely poised for a very, very strong finish through the end of the year here. So I really think this is going to be, we're just doing really, really well. It's also really satisfying to see the kind of operational performance that we have. Our average length of stay, which is door-to-door time for our ER, is about a little over 100 minutes. So where can you go get health care on demand 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and be able to get in and out of an emergency department in about an hour and 40 minutes on average?
How do you do that, Steve? How do you do it?
That came out of a kind of a quality project. I come out of industry. I'm an ex-IBM person. I work for Controlled Data. I was an entrepreneur in IT. That was my first career. And then I was a research scientist at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and then later at Albany Medical Center. And some of the things that we did in those careers were things called interval analysis, where we were measuring intervals. So if you can imagine an emergency department visit, it's made up of lots of intervals. The patient arrives at the hospital. We ask them to have a seat in the waiting room, and we have them wait for a while, and then we have them come in for triage. Triage is from the battlefield concept, and it's from the French word trier, which means to sort. And we treat people in the order of severity, not in the order of arrival. So if someone's very ill, having a heart attack or some really serious condition, they get seen immediately. And if somebody comes in and, they twisted their ankle and it kind of is sore, but it doesn't hurt that much anymore, but they want to get it checked out, they may have to wait longer. And so then when we're done with this, a very short, brief intervention, a couple of minutes, then we would, in the old days, they would go back to the waiting room to wait some more, and then we would call them up for registration, and then they would wait, and finally a bed would become available, and they would be put into a bed, and they would wait for the nursing assessment, and then they would wait for the provider, and then the provider would probably order some tests to figure out what was wrong with the patient, and then they would wait for those results, and you get all this waiting. It takes hours and hours and hours. Most of the time is waiting. And I didn't get that waiting, Gene. I didn't get that. I can't stand waiting. If I wanted something yesterday, I would have it today, and if I wanted it tomorrow, I'm not really worried about it now. And that's the way most people are. I'm not really that unique. So what we did is we figured out how we could squeeze out the waiting time on every one of those intervals, and we worked really hard on that to figure out what we could do that would accelerate the process. So, like, for example, having a lab test is a very common thing in diagnosing people in an emergency department. So we measured that, and we were 1 hour and 15 minutes for the turnaround time to get that result, which is, pretty average. That was, pretty much what you should expect. Now, that same exact metric last month, because I measure it every day, I have it aggregated for each month, was 19 minutes. So we saved almost an hour every time somebody needs a lab test.
And you think you gained some experience from being at several of the other parts of your career that you applied in the hospital emergency room. That's you would never think that being an entrepreneur or graduating RPI that you could apply that to a hospital environment, but obviously you have, and you have successfully. I also noticed, Steve, that when you first began to talk about how excited you are about what is occurring at the hospital, the first thing you said was quality. And that's refreshing to hear that. And how do you test? How do you go about determining that the quality has improved?
Well, quality is like anything else. We can measure it. So we are measuring the outcomes of our patients, and then the quality metrics are various steps in the process. So if you have the greatest quality and the patient dies, I don't think that's very successful. So you have to combine quality and outcomes. So we look at the functional outcomes of our patients as the ultimate test of quality. If we're able to have our patients return stronger and healthier, then that's I would consider that to be an improvement in our overall quality, and I see that as a success.
And you have that available to you?
We're constantly doing internal studies of our processes, trying to improve them with the real goal of improving the outcomes for our patients.
Well, Steve, I
can give you an example of a project that we did. And so one of the projects that we did is I challenged our staff to improve the functional outcomes. That's how strong our patients are that come for rehabilitation in the hospital. Patients that are inpatients, they're people recovering from a heart attack or a stroke or some other serious illness, and they, like COVID. COVID is a really good example of that. If somebody's on a ventilator, they lay in a vegetative state, basically, for weeks. And when they're finally able to wake them up, and because their infection has subsided through antibiotics and other treatments, they're completely debilitated. They can't walk, they can't sit up, they can't feed themselves, they can't lift their arms, they can barely do anything. And we've seen a lot of those kind of patients in the last 2 years. It's been really amazing that someone can survive COVID and then be completely debilitated. And so we rehab them, and and get them stronger. So, but when we started looking at this, I was looking at it on a more general basis because I wanted our staff to be trying to figure out how they could improve the strength of our patients. And the 80-20 rule applies to healthcare like pretty much everything else.
What is the 80-20 rule?
The 80-20 rule is that 20% of what you do generates 80% of the benefit. And it applies to almost anything. You know, we have a lot of wasted motion because that's the way we are trained to do it. And you always have to do all of these different things, dot the I's, cross the T's. But, you know, the 20% generates most of the benefit. So I challenged my staff to figure out what is the 20% and do more of that. Do more. Give our patients more of what it is that benefits them the most. So when we look at COVID, we have someone who can't walk. A major part of walking is being able to have a proper gait. That's the proper step to work on their balance. Because if you can't balance, you can't walk. And as we're teaching people to learn to walk again, they have to first learn to balance and then to be able to step. And we put a lot of effort into that because if you can't get that right, then you can't walk. And if you can't walk, then you can't really strengthen your legs and you can't strengthen your core. And it's your core that helps you to sit up and stand up. So I'm not the clinical person, but I'm really focusing on how to come with stronger outcomes at the end and then work backwards into the process to figure out, you know, what we have to do to accomplish that. And,
how do you motivate your staff? Because I'm sure they are new initiatives or new methods. How do you motivate? What are the benefits that you can give to your staff to follow those new programs?
Well, I think we have to free them. Because in healthcare, which as I mentioned, I didn't grow up in healthcare. I grew up in industry. And in industry, particularly in technology, we're trying to push the envelope all the time to make things better, faster, more efficient. And in healthcare, we are much slower in adopting some of those kinds of concepts, and that's because we have such a litigious society where people are afraid of being sued.
Yes, that is so true.
So,
that is, something,
true.
Steve?
I mean,
it's not a show full of lawyers and judges.
We live, one of the biggest pitfalls of our society is we live in a litigious society. When I was growing up, we didn't sue people at the drop of a hat. We would never dream of doing it. Yet today, it seems to be the first thing that is thought of. And as a result, professionals, no matter what your profession, the hospital industry, any industry, there is a fear of getting sued because it is an incredibly expensive and stressful experience to go through that lawsuit.
But I think everything that Steve's talked about, is amazing being accomplished in Ellenville, New York. It's great to hear that Ellenville is on the upswing, but historically it's been a challenging area, and I've always been intrigued that as a small, community hospital, you not only have you maintained, but you've thrived. And hearing you talk about the data and driving outcomes, it's no different than, the guest we had on earlier who used to appear before Judge Williams. And she said she had to be prepared and she had to be, she was held accountable. Those are what drive outcomes. And it's very interesting to hear you.
I'm so glad that I never had to appear in front of Williams.
Steve, I'm sure that would never happen to begin with, that it's not that bad of an experience.
I used to benefit from hearing the stories from my uncle, and some of them weren't pretty.
No, county
Steve,
court is not a pretty place.
I read recently, and I was thinking about it last night when I knew you were coming on. You have a partnership going on. Is it with the county government that's new?
We have a lot of partnerships. We have a partnership with the county government and the Institute for Family Health for a rural health network. We're doing just remarkable work in public health in helping people to learn to really to connect themselves to their health so that they make better decisions about exercise and diet and risks that people take, like smoking and consuming alcohol and things like that, where if we can help people to make better decisions, they will be healthier, and it will cost our whole system less money, because prevention is always cheaper than having to solve the problem after it's manifested.
And how are you reaching people with that program?
We have a lot of outreach. We're in senior centers, we're in the community, we're in the schools, all over the place. We have outreach people who are speaking at different public gatherings. We're all over the internet. I mean, everything is really electronically driven now as far as our communications. We seem to be doing pretty well. We have a lot of people engaged, a lot of people.
That's wonderful.
We do things around medication safety, helping our pharmacists, helping people to understand their medications and how they work. So also looking at what they are. We have multiple doctors that people see that all prescribe medications for their single body part that they are specialists in, and they don't really, they don't usually look that closely at what other people are doing. So sometimes the medications cancel each other out, and you'd have little or no benefit from some of them. So our pharmacist sits down, sorts that out with patients, and helps them to, and that's often we'll reach out to doctors and let them, discuss what other options might be available for medications. So there's an example of our pharmacist just doing that. It's called medication reconciliation.
And that's a huge...
thousands of people in our community. It seems like almost everybody.
That's an enormous issue. I had a family member that happened exactly what you just described, and it was frightening. And it's a fantastic service that hopefully people, if you're not familiar with what that medication reconciliation is, it's really something that, Steve, you're the expert, not me, but you want to have, if you're on multiple medications, you should have that reviewed periodically, correct?
Yes. But people don't get that, and often they may see multiple doctors and pick things up at multiple pharmacies, so there's not very good communication amongst providers. And so, that's just one of the things that we do. But as we connect people to their own health and help them to make better decisions, I believe that the health metrics will improve in our community, and so we're doing a lot of work with youth and childhood obesity and seniors. A lot of seniors, people who've lived their lives, worked hard, and then are now their health is sort of failing a bit. But if they can make better decisions about what they eat and how they exercise and some of the risks that they take to mitigate those risks, they can live a lot healthier and cost less to the system and to them personally. People don't want to spend a lot of money on health care. They want to be well. They want to feel good.
And
that's
more than ever,
our
right?
role as a community hospital.
More than ever with all of the isolation from COVID that, I have a 14-year-old son who, I watch some of his friends that have been cooped up for over a year, and, just the change in their behavior, or, the way they look, and thank God, sports and after-school activities are back now that, you're watching these kids kind of come out of their own skin again and having fun again. But the seniors is a whole nother challenge for people that, if they live alone or anything. So it's a wonderful, wonderful outreach program.
Steve, what do you see with the problem with opiates? Has that, in so many other parts, apparently the country, addictions have increased. I know that fentanyl deaths are at an all-time high. What are you seeing in your community, and how are you going about addressing that issue?
That's a topic almost in and of itself. That is a huge topic. That is a giant problem, and it has gotten a lot worse with COVID. We were really doing a lot of work around fighting that the opioid epidemic, and we drove down deaths in Ulster County in 2019 over 2018 by 41%.
That's
and
huge.
in 2020, we gave it all back, and this year we're on a track to be about the same, or even maybe a little bit worse.
And
so really the opioid epidemic has thrived during COVID when nobody was paying attention, and we had a lot more isolation of people.
Steve, before we wrap up, it looks like we have about a minute left, but would love to actually have you come back and talk more about that.
We can devote the next time to that. We're doing a lot with that. That's an area that is really timely, especially as we approach the holidays when there are a lot of deaths.
Well, and you've demonstrated to us your leadership in successfully running a community hospital, so I think it would be absolutely time well spent to dedicate time to this specific issue and have you share your thoughts with us and the community.
I look forward to doing that. We'll do that the next time. That takes some time because it's not a simple issue. It's a very complicated, difficult issue with a lot of different dimensions to it.
I agree 100%, and it's one of those things that I'm a believer in. You do what you can to give back and help other people, and I stare at that issue, and you feel helpless because it's so complicated.
Steve, thank you once again.
Thanks,
I
Steve.
always learn so much every time I get a chance to speak with you. So thanks again, and stay well, stay healthy.
Thank you. Enjoy the holidays if I don't speak with you, but I think I speak with you again before Christmas at least.
I believe you do. Correct. All right, Steve.
All right, Steve, take care. Thank you, everybody. All right, we'll be back with the next half hour with Ulster Federal Credit Union.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore. Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? By shifting to a system that gives more patients access to strong primary care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
Screening exams for breast, lung, or colorectal cancers are necessary to detect and treat disease at its earliest, most curable stage. But you may have some concerns and questions. Answer your questions and ease your fears by visiting radiologyinfo.org. In addition to information on screening and wellness, you'll find more than 200 descriptions of radiologic exams, procedures, and treatments to help you prepare. Get informed and be prepared. Visit radiologyinfo.org, produced by the Radiological Society of North America and the American College of Radiology.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio has been brought to you by the First Savings Bank in Ulster County that still remains local to this day. Ulster Savings Bank, a community bank that's invested in local business, invested in community, invested in you. Ulster Savings Bank, your one-stop resource for everything local. Locations throughout the Hudson Valley and online at ulstersavings.com. Member FDIC.
Okay, we're back. No, you don't have to do the announcements. We've been, what is it, Wreaths Across America?
No, we're not.
Snowflake
I don't
Festival?
want, these are people that contribute to the Happy Christmas.
All right, go
Fund,
ahead,
so we'll
Don,
do
let it
this.
rip.
Well, I got a directive from Marmo to do it 7:25. It doesn't look like it's
No, I wrote that on there.
All right.
Yeah.
So then I can ignore it. No, we're
no,
going to do the
we read them all week, but if you want to go ahead and read them,
Yeah,
I'm not going to stop
absolutely.
you. Go ahead, let them.
I don't have my glasses. I want to embarrass Dan because he doesn't have his. The first is the Cuba Network has the Snowflake Festival, Friday, December 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. Uptown. Oh, the Snowflake.
Yeah, the
I
Snowflake.
know
You've been
the
there.
I've been there. In fact, Tom Jacoby, my good friend,
Yes.
who owns Schneider's, he was the Snowflake Queen, I think.
Wait, can a guy
Snowflake
be a
king.
queen, dude? Come on, bro.
I'm just trying to be
Hey,
appropriate politically.
2021.
Sorry, I forgot what year it was.
There's no
My
more
bad.
king and queen. I think it's just the snowflake.
person.
Yeah.
Person.
He's the guy that rides on top of the truck, right? With the
Yeah.
Santa Claus?
No,
The fire truck.
Jacoby? Oh, he did that.
No, but
year.
the guy
Right.
that, yeah, okay, forget it.
Anyway, so there's
We'll
a
get through
raffle
this.
that closes November 15th.
That's for
which
another
is
show.
Yesterday. All right, you.
All right, Wreaths Across America, Saugerties VFW, Post 5034. Remember the fallen, honor those who serve, teach our children the value of freedom by placing wreaths on the gravesite. Saturday, December 18th, $15 a person, and it's at the Saugerties VFW, or you can call Bob Howe at 246-8510. And then Lawrence is going to help me out with this pronunciation of this place. He says has,
the Manicore Damacore. I'm probably not pronouncing it right. The only one that does pronounce it right is Fred Costello.
all right, well, you're better than me.
It's the German social club that's on Greenkill Avenue.
Yeah, they got a fall concert, dinner, and dance, and Lawrence says the smoked pork is to die
Yeah, the
for.
food there is.
is
have
this-
you been there, Don?
I had, you know,
Sounds like we got to do a road trip.
Bob
67
Zentner, who
Greenkill?
was Bob Zentner, who was, and you mentioned it
Yes.
earlier, Dan. He was the father of Karen Zentner, who I prosecuted when I was an assistant DA. The individuals that dropped the 52-pound boulder over the overpass. And
Oh, that's who you were talking about earlier.
And Bob, and I still have contact with Bob.
That place has some amazing food, though.
But he
When it comes
invited
to
me.
German
Well,
food.
Looks like we're going to do our Christmas meeting over there then. November 21st. That's coming up soon. So
That actually is Sunday, Dan.
Sunday, 37 Greenkill Avenue. Entire event is $40 per person. Hors d'oeuvres and concert $20. Dance and dessert is $20.
Wait a second. You have to dance in order to get dessert?
I
don't know.
don't know.
Then you
Dance
get
for
to
your
hurl your
dessert?
dessert on the dance floor after you're done.
I will not. It's the last time I'll ever do the worm again. I promise.
I'd pay money to see you do the worm.
Yeah, a lot of people would trust me with the robes on. Yeah.
These poor ladies sitting here going,
they're
"Why?
under-
How did I end up
Get
here?"
into, yeah.
So,
Oh, we have two guests.
last half hour, Melissa Turpening, Risk Officer, and Rachel Brown, Branch Manager of Ulster Federal Credit Union. Good morning.
Good morning.
And I think this is your first for the two of you. No, you
My
look.
first.
Okay, you've been here, Melissa?
I've been here, but it's been a while.
A while, okay. So you have an idea of what to expect.
A little bit.
Rachel doesn't. What a great.
I brought my notes.
The only thing better than having a person as a guest for the first time in this show was yelling at attorneys. There's nothing better in life. But no, we'll be kind.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember my first time pinch hitting. I think Tony called me at like 4:30 the day before.
That's Tony.
And what I did not tell Tony, I kind of made it like, geez, Tony, you really put me in a tough spot here. What he didn't know at the time is I was actually a DJ in college. So
Really?
It wasn't my first time behind the
Did
microphone.
you spin discs while you're...
I had the esteemed 6 a.m. Show on a college campus, which I used to literally bait people to call in.
I doubt that anyone on a college campus was up at 6 a.m.
There were very few, and what I quickly learned is those that were up, you did not want to call into your radio show.
Oh.
Yes.
Because they were still overcoming the throes of...
No, those people weren't capable of calling. It was the ones that were not out the night before and called in to, display their knowledge of whatever topic that they were very well versed in and would carry on for, 10, 12, 14 minutes. Kind of like I am right now.
Unique with a college student that they would think they knew a great deal more than everyone.
Yeah, a lot of philosophy majors where I went to college.
I majored in philosophy and history, believe
Did you really?
To double major.
Interesting.
Philosophy was great.
Where did you go to undergrad?
Seton Hall University. Went there thinking I was going to play basketball until I saw everybody that the average height was 6'10".
My brother-in-law played baseball there.
Seton Hall had a great... I'm sorry, ladies.
I know.
We'll get to your bit.
I know.
Seton Hall had an incredible...
We're wearing down here.
Mo Vaughn.
He was on the team with Mo Vaughn and Craig Biggio. He backed up...
Incredible professional baseball players came from my alma mater.
He backed up Craig Biggio.
Never saw them in class, by the way. But they were good baseball players. However...
All right,
what's going on with
tell us what's happening at the credit union.
Well, Rachel's got a list. She wanted to talk a little bit about some fundraising that
We
we're
don't
doing.
tell people we have a list. That way we sound prepared.
I'm sorry, Rachel's prepared.
Yes.
That's part of preparation is mapping out what you're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
I'm a newbie. I have to.
No.
We've got some great fundraising and stuff going on, so we did want to talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yep. So every year we fundraise for a non-for-profit in Ulster County. So this year it's Ryan, raising your awareness about narcotics.
Oh, what a great topic.
Yeah, so we're trying to bring awareness to that and help the Kelder family out. So we're actually doing our last 2 raffles of the year right now. One is a 50-50 raffle that we're selling in the branch. Another one is a holiday money wreath. It's beautiful. It's got origami money and it has $500 in cash on it. So we're selling tickets for that too.
It's impressive.
It's beautiful. Yeah, nice Christmas gift.
Wow. $500? Who
And
am
it
I
goes
giving
towards
to?
a
Other
good
than my
cause.
kids, who would I give $500? Nah. Anyway, but what a great thing to have in your home.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things we're doing. We're adopting a family for Christmas wishes this year as well.
And to tell us how both of these programs work. What happens with the money you raise?
It all goes right to them, to the
That,
organization.
and
it's
that
all
is
local
so
and in the
great.
community.
We were talking about the Happy Christmas Fund and Dan's Bike-thon for... What is the title of it? I know...
The Rosemary D. Gruner Memorial Cancer Fund. It's part of Benedictine Health Foundation, and then the Bike for Cancer Care is the event.
All of these programs, these fundraisers, there's very little administrative, if any, costs, which is fantastic.
Yep. Right.
Because so many, I would get the calls from people as district attorney or judge, people saying that they were calling on behalf of a police agency. And the title was amazing, but I knew, because of my experience, that these were just paid fundraisers. They were not affiliated with any police department or any agency, but they were getting paid to make the calls. So it's great to hear that 100% goes specifically for the cause. So the second...
Yep. So we're doing those, and we're also adopting a family for Christmas wishes.
Okay.
And we're also participating in the holiday tree hunt, which is through the People's Place.
Tree hunt?
Tree hunt.
A scavenger hunt type event.
Do you send somebody out in the forest and say,
No.
pick a tree?
No. It's domesticated. So they basically, a bunch of businesses are participating and they get a map or something where they have to go to these organizations and businesses and get a stamp saying that they've been there, and then they get entered into winning gift cards and stuff.
Why do you call it? Why is it called the tree hunt? That really
That's
piqued
the
my
people's
curiosity.
place. I'm just,
Okay.
we're just a
Christmas
participant.
tree. It probably has something to do with Christmas trees, but you know, I want to ask you a couple questions. But before I forget, speaking of People's Place, we've had a theme of really great organizations, people locally. Just what I like to call it. You know, I was interviewed for a magazine years ago about my work in, helping cancer patients and things. And it was a pretty unique interview. It was completely unscripted. Well, she was scripted. I had no idea what she was going to ask me.
The representative for
Yeah.
People's Place.
No, this was for what used to be called the old Ulster magazine, which was
Yes.
And so the woman's interviewing me, and it was, 10 questions or whatever it was. And she says, quote that you would put on a T-shirt. You've got 10 seconds.
Wow.
And I said, get it done, ask questions later.
Nice.
And she said, can I print that? I said, you absolutely can. The amount of people that called me up and said, that defines you.
That's
Because
great.
that's how, it is this way. Like, my sisters used to joke and call me the CEO and the CFO of our mom's cancer fund, because I like to have other people involved. I encourage it, but if I ask you to do something, you don't get it done, I'm just going to do it because then I can move on, right? But People's Place yesterday, we were there, the lacrosse program, my son's a lacrosse player. We all went, Coach Westerman organized for the teams to go, and it was modified JV varsity, to help them bring the Thanksgiving product from the basement up to where now they're starting to pack for next week. I couldn't get over how much. These kids moved, and I don't know the exact number because I wasn't the one counting, hundreds of boxes in preparation for Thanksgiving. And, to see that behind the scenes, what goes on, and kudos to the coaches for organizing our kids, and not only organizing them, but getting them to do it. They got the job done in less than 40 minutes.
That's awesome.
Because you got 14, 15, 16-year-old kids running up and down the stairs, each carrying 2 boxes. And, my son says to me afterwards, he says, well, what was that for anyway, Dad?
Wow.
And I said, there's a lot of people that can't afford Thanksgiving, and it gives an opportunity. And I constantly try to bring him along with me. I want him to learn what my parents taught me.
Yeah, it's great awareness.
And, get out there and do things. Your Christmas fund, can you talk a little bit more about that? How are people eligible?
To participate?
Yes.
Anyone can participate.
Okay.
And what about the recipients?
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. How do you determine is it gifts or money, or where it's distributed to?
For which one?
Yeah,
The Christmas
there were several different initiatives. The one that dealt with Christmas,
So each year,
the tree hunt or whatever.
well, that's the one through People's Place, so I'm not sure how
Okay.
that's organized.
So it's
But
much
what-
like how People's Place would normally work, so,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But what we do in the branch varies slightly each year in who we decide we're going to contribute funds to or who we're going to fundraise for. And that's just an internal selection. We throw a bunch of local non-for-profits, Ulster County-based non-for-profits kind of into a hat, kind of pull them out, discuss them, and then just try to select from the people that we've pooled. So it will change every year.
There seems to be a whistling in the background. I don't see
Hear it.
Lawrence, so let me see.
I think that's
Continue
better.
the interview, I'll find Lawrence.
I think
I think it's better.
yeah, I just turned the volume down a little bit, but
I'm so impressed
Lo-
how quickly I got out of that.
Lawrence is busy stuffing envelopes this morning, so we're just kind of flying solo, and hard to believe we made it to 8:45 without any issues. So, Yeah, we're doing
Neither
well.
one of us are, we're both technically challenged.
Yes, I can operate.
Technologically challenged is what I really meant to say.
Yes, and I agree with.
How does the credit union itself, is it a not-for-profit? How does the credit union work? It's not-for-profit, correct?
Credit union is non-for-profit.
But it's open not just to employees of Ulster County, it's open to everyone now.
Right. At one point in time, we were SEG-based, where you had to work for a specific employer in order to have an account. SEG-based, yep, and
SEG standing
what does that
for-
remember for? You know, I can't remember what that stands for, but it's
That's what happens.
it's Select Employee Groups. So we started out as the Teachers Credit Union and then Ulster County, and of course we've evolved from there, where now we are community-based, which is common for credit unions now, to
Sure.
be community-based rather than employee-based.
Which
So
is great.
so we're open to all of Ulster County.
So that must have led to growth. I would. When.
Yeah, I mean, it opens the doors, sure, for who's eligible and who's not.
Yep. And I think because I think it's unless you're involved with a credit union, a lot of people, are aware of them, but probably not fully understand, like, the difference between a credit union and a bank, or the advantages of a credit union.
Yeah, and the biggest difference is being non-for-profit, right, that we're run by the employees and a non-paid board, so we don't have to be concerned with, dividends and things like that, and paying board members and
It must
keeping
be
stockholders
difficult to
happy.
compete with banks, though, when you're not for profit. But obviously, you guys are extremely successful. Have been here. I was a young assistant district attorney for Ulster County, and I know I had money taken right out of my check and then went my paycheck,
Right.
and went right into, which was the only way somebody that's making $15,000 a year could possibly save and pay their student loan. But anyway, it was great, and you guys are highly successful. So it must be that you have a great hiring process. You get the right people working there. Can you compete as far as salaries with banks that are bringing in all this money?
I honestly don't have a solid answer to that. I'm not sure. My home is the credit union. I've been there forever, so I'm not really sure with what other institutions, especially the banks, are doing as far as salaries go. I would think it's a safe assumption that they're going to pay quite a bit more, but there's advantages to being where we are as well.
Absolutely.
So
One of them is everyone, and you're here pretty much, I'm only once a month, third Thursday. You guys are here virtually every Thursday that I'm on, and I see different people rotating.
Yes.
And the feeling I get from seeing all of you, number one, you always seem to be so damn happy.
We are.
People were not happy coming into my courtroom, but second, it almost seems like a family, no matter what branch.
There's only like 25 of us, I think, between
That's
the
part
about
of it.
28 right now.
How many
But even
branches?
three. But even when we had a couple more branches, they were kind of like part-time sort of branches, and we had more employees. It's always been a very close work relationship with everyone.
So you know everyone you're working with, which is
That's
great.
it is great. Maybe not always the best thing in the world, but obviously the leadership there is great.
Yeah.
Because everyone that comes in, every time you speak with any agency, 25 people, even smaller, there always is something that someone's not happy with, and I don't get that at all from you.
I don't think we really have that.
Wow.
No.
It's great.
Yeah. A lot of people that work for the credit union have been there 15, 20
For
plus
a long
years.
time.
So,
A lot of value in longevity. I can
you're
tell
not
you
kidding.
that, I'm in the insurance business, which ultimately is the customer service business. And, we had one position in particular, it was a revolving door for years. And I finally said to the woman that ran the department, I said, stop filling the seat to fill the seat. Right? We're better off with one less person and the team picking up the pieces than bringing someone in here who either isn't effective or doesn't want to be here and drags the other two people down that are working with that person. I said, just stop. And that's actually what we did. And, it solved a lot of headache. You know, wasn't easy, but, you know, cohesiveness is, and Melissa, you oversee risk at the credit union.
Correct.
Correct.
For people that aren't in the business world, what does that mean?
It's a lot of compliance. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of reports.
But risk itself, what does that mean? Risk.
Mitigate risk.
So let's see. Well, it involves a lot. It touches on regulations to make sure that the credit union is following regulations, compliance-wise, everything is in order.
Regulations federally and state as a bank would, is that?
There's going to be some slight differences, but for the most part, yeah,
But it's
that's
set up
correct.
for credit unions, I take it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I'm also involved in security, with the security in the branches and things like that as well. And, you know, suspicious activity, that sort of thing. So it encompasses a lot of the daily goings-on in the credit union, making sure that everything is running the way it's supposed to.
Have you guys, I think you have been victimized by robberies in the past.
In the past, it's been a very long time, knock on wood.
Yeah, I think I
Roundout.
some of them.
Rondout was very recent, yeah.
Yeah. You know, one thing a reason I asked you about risk was my identity was compromised July 4th weekend. And I have, you know, what's called identity protection. And fortunately, my bank was incredibly helpful, but what they did it July 4th weekend. I have Apple Pay. They got in.
Yep.
They replaced Apple Pay with Samsung Pay.
Okay.
And ran around. I don't, right? I had no reason to log into my bank over the weekend. So that Tuesday morning, the 5th was Monday was the holiday. Tuesday morning, I go to log in. I pay my bills online, and I'm like, whoa, like.
Where'd all your money go?
And so I didn't even blink. I just went to the bank, right? And the short story is, they got in. They didn't do any one transaction over $108. But there was, well, I don't remember the number of transactions, but it was more than $1,700 between July 4th and 5th. And so, you know, I started talking to the bank and how common it is, and I started doing some research on it. And I mean, it's incredible how rampant it is.
It's very unfortunate, and it does affect a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's, you know, that was the eye-opener to me, right? I'm using Apple Pay because it's safe. That's what they tell me anyway. Well, is it? No, I don't know. But, you know, I didn't spend too much time worrying about the mechanics of how they got in. Like, let's get it fixed. And, you know, we wiped my, you know, changed my card number and all that. But it's a real problem today.
It is. It's been a problem for quite some time. And unfortunately, I don't foresee anything that can really be done to prevent it completely, because, you know, as you rectify one issue, these fraudsters, people who are hacking into things, are going to find another way to do it.
Yep.
So I think it's something that's here to stay, and the best thing you can
People
do
have
is really
to be
monitor
incredibly
your accounts.
aware of it.
Yeah.
Perhaps if they could locate the individuals that are doing it and send a message of deterrent by slamming them.
Yeah.
Right, the number one problem is locating them.
Yeah.
Right? They're over here today. Now they're way over here. I mean,
Or in other countries completely.
correct. And that's the thing. They had no way to trace the
there's no
origin
way.
of where these
I know
people.
it's far more complicated, but we had typically shoplifters that would come out of the city, and they would hit the various locations, and they would only steal below $250, which is what makes it a felony. Even if you
Right.
steal a larceny at $250, no one holds those people accountable until they ended up in Ulster County Court.
Good for you.
Well, no, the prosecution had to start it, but then they got very fair hearings, and they received the maximum period of incarceration, state prison. That sent a message.
Yeah, let me guess. Shoplifting in Ulster County dropped significantly?
I can't say that, but I will say this much. I didn't see too many other cases brought in front of my court. What was happening to them, I don't know.
The theme of today, accountability.
Even the people out of New York City.
Unbelievable.
It's just holding people accountable. However, far more complicated when it's cyber crime.
Absolutely.
Right, and you can't locate the individual.
Yep.
Poses a big problem.
So, Rachel, we got a couple minutes left. I know you're the branch manager. We want to make sure you get through your list.
Thank you. Oh, no, we're doing good.
How long have you been with the credit union?
I've been with the credit union 5 years.
Great.
But only a manager for a year and a half, going on 2 years. So
She's
doing great.
learning a lot.
Yep. Well,
It doesn't matter how long you're doing
You're not
something, you
kidding.
learn every day.
And that's what's great, though.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly. That's what makes it interesting. But I think even more importantly is you obviously keep your employees, and you do that because you treat your employees that they're part of your family.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
you're gonna have family squabbles. It happens, but
well, and doing what you're doing, at the end of the year, not only is the organization giving back, your employees are obviously involved. I think that is a very, very infectious, in a good way,
Yeah, absolutely.
result to, it starts at the top with your leadership, right? But then to have the employees out doing the work. Our company's is same. They actually, we sold our company last year, but before that, they actually tracked, and we had to submit every year what boards we served on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were someone like me that's in a production role and you weren't involved in things, they'd question you about it.
Yeah.
Because they want you to be out in the community giving back, and they would support us. We had a charitable foundation that I could access to support. And, our CEO at the time, the whole philosophy was you want people to trust you, and you want people to consider you as a business partner. Well, you better be out there doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
And that was so infectious. Most of us were on 2 boards.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get on one, you enjoy it, you meet great people, and then somebody else asks you, right, you do a good job, then they want to duplicate you. A guy just emailed me now, wants to meet with me about, joining a board, and I'll get back to you later today.
Learn how to say no sometimes.
Yeah. I've trained my coworker about that.
I just
said,
got
"There is
the
a word."
message from Lawrence. Thank God he's here.
Yeah.
1 minute. So anything that the two of you would like to leave us with in the roughly 30 seconds we have left?
My last comment is that we have wonderful members, too.
That's
They're also like family. We know a lot of them by name and have
absolutely.
good relationships.
Close
That's
relationships
what
with
also
a lot of
makes
the membership.
working for
That's
the credit
great.
union so amazing.
And it's why you get so many people returning as members. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And bringing their family in, which is always really nice too. You'll have an older couple or someone who's been a member for a long time bring the younger generations in, and
Great.
it's nice to meet the entire family.
Rachel, pleasure meeting
Yes,
you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming in. Don?
Thank you.
Dan, always a pleasure.
Excellent
Great
job
to see
today,
you.
guys. Thank you, Ulster Federal Credit Union, one of our underwriters. We will be back tomorrow with Friday, and everyone have a great day.